So, good morning everyone.
Morning.
We read yesterday the Parsha of Tzitzit. Of course we read it every day. Yesterday we read it in the Parsha. So, there's a remarkable passage brought in the Gemara. It says, Kol hazahir b'tzitzit, anyone who is careful and enthusiastic to perform the mitzvah of tzitzit, zocheh u'mishamshim lo 2,400 avadim. He will merit that they will serve him 2,800 servants. Well, from where is this taken? From the book of Yechezkel, where it says, in future times, Ko Amar Hashem Tzvakot, V'ayimim ha'heima asher yachziku 10 nashim mikol lashonot hagoyim v'yachziku b'chnaf ish Yehudi lemor nilcha imachem. There's going to come a time in those days when 10 men of all the languages and nations of the world will take hold of the corners of the garments of a Jewish person, and they'll say to him, we want to walk with you because God is with you. So, although in the verse it doesn't say they're servants, so how do the sages say servants? They mean they want to learn from the Jewish people the service of Hashem. And at this speaking about a time when the nation is defined as the Jewish people, the Jewish man. So you could say it refers to what is happening in some circles, even today. In fact, I've had more than one student. I'll tell you the first one. Was a student, non-Jewish father, Jewish mother, knew nothing about Judaism. And so he came to the yeshiva and said, what was your first connection? What triggered it off? Because he was from a completely assimilated background, no connection with the Jewish community. He saw a person walking around with tzitzis. I didn't know what they were. So he goes up to him and says, what are these strings hanging out? What are they? So I explained to him what they were. So he became more interested. That was the first step. He happened to be a Jew, really, because his mother was Jewish. I think it was the first year of the yeshiva. But it'll come out that first of all, it's very interesting that this mention that the book of Zechariah speaks about the time of the redemption, because that's what's going to happen then. And what's the idea of 10 men? You understand? 10 men from 70 nations, that's 700. And then the grass field of the corner of the tzitzits, one corner. So you have 4 of them. The 4 corners will all be an attraction to the non-Jewish world, which means Zohar b'tzitzit, the Jew is expected to become a Rosh Yeshiva for a yeshiva of 2,800 students from the nations of the world, which is, in fact, we don't have enough Jews to go around today, and the population of the world has increased, so so much, and the population of Jews is diminished so much, we don't have enough Jews to do it. But in any case, whoever's careful with tzitzis, you'll be able to do it. Now, before I go on to try to understand this on a deeper level, I think we should look at the verse itself in its context. From Zechariah. It says there, someone can pass me it enough. I need Jews and Bible. It's not lying around here somewhere. Thank you very much. Let's have a look at it in chapter 8 of Zechariah, because it's good to look at it in its context. And we understand it better. And we're going to follow in this what is, on the whole, today, the best commentary on the Bible for us to read is that of the Malbim, if you know some Hebrew. It's not that it's all his own words, he quotes many preceding great masters who have made a commentary in Tanakh. But he incorporates them and applies them with such insight, because the things that he describes in the prophets we see developing in front of our eyes, especially concerning the present day turning point in the history of civilizations, when we have the wildness of the distortion of Islam all over the world, combined to some extent with the extreme cruelty of the Holocaust. And he shows how all these matters are mentioned in the prophets. And they're all called Chavlei HaMashiach, the birth pangs of the Mashiach when the world will change. We also see that all the prophecies concerning the way in which ultimately the message of Hashem to mankind through the people of Israel given on the mountain of Sinai is percolating nearly every corner of the world. But unfortunately it doesn't have effect. So he says here in chapter 8, Zechariah speaks about both the difficulties, the apparent misfortunes, and also the great experiences on a miraculous level which will take place when the people of Israel will really do teshuvah. For example, he says here in chapter 8, verse 16, it says, "These are the things that you shall do." It's addressing here the people of Israel. "Speak every man the truth to his neighbor. Fulfill the judgment of truth and peace in your gates. And let none of you devise evil in your hearts against his neighbor. And do not love a false oath. For all these are things that I hate, says Hashem." And then came the word of Hashem to me, saying, "Thus says Hashem, who is called the Lord of the hosts." It means he's the one who has control in history over the world population, although he gives human beings freedom of choice. And what is the message here? He speaks here about the fast days. The fast days which are because of the failures of our nation. And the way in which we were banished and the temple was destroyed. The fast of the 4th month, the 5th, the 7th month, and the 10th, they will become times of joy and gladness. and cheerful feast to the house of Yehuda. But when can that happen? Only if you love truth and peace. Thus says Hashem Tzva'ot, it shall come to pass that there shall come people, and the inhabitants of many cities, and the inhabitants of one city will go to another, saying, let's go together to entreat the favor of Hashem and to seek Hashem Tzva'ot. I'll also go. And many peoples and strong nations will come to seek Hashem Tzva'ot. Where? In Yerushalayim. And they pray in front of you, Hashem. And that says Hashem, in those days shall come to pass that 10 men or the language of the nation shall take hold and seize the corner of the garment of the Jews, saying, we'll go with you, for we have heard that God is with you. So this is a remarkable prophecy. These things have happened in recent times also. Non-Jews have come out and said, we know God's with you, we want to join you. From the Christian world, from the agnostic world, the atheistic world, from the Muslim world also. So, the Malbim, he adds another point to this. He says, in these verses, we have two premonitions of what's going to happen, ultimately, if we as Jews fulfill our task. He says, one is the people will come from all over the world to go and pray to Hashem in Yerushalayim. Today we see there are millions of people coming to the Kotel, non-Jews. Some of them come, it's true, just to tour, to see what's going on. But many of them, you can see them praying sincerely. They feel this is the place of prayer. Even though they have the different religions, they have to don't understand things. But that's one, certainly it's an enormous attraction. And it's a magnet for Jews and for Gentiles. Then there's another, that's in the previous verse. But this verse, concerning with the tzitzit, it says not limited to having to come to Yerushalayim. Wherever people will see a Jew, they'll say, we know that God is with you. And it's true, when the sages say that what's it called Sinai? Because of Sinai. Sinai brought hatred to the nations of the world. Which way? Hatred of the Jews. Because the nations of the world on the whole, they rejected the Torah. And many of them are still rejecting it. And we know inside their soul is jealous. They say, what's the secret of this Jew? What lies in him? And they know underneath, for the Jews, they are the nation that develops the conscience. Therefore, they do have certain occasions when their inner conscience gets hold of them. But what happens if they suppress it? Then the conscience, deep down inside them, turns them into enormous jealousy, which brings them to enormous hatred. What say the Jews? When they've got the conscience. And it makes some of them go crazy. Like Hitler and Marshamo, he said we've got to destroy all the Jews. They weaken the mind of man by inventing and developing the human conscience. But inside, they realize that this is false, subconsciously. This creates the inner problems. So, the time will come when the conscience will become more strong. mankind will recognize that God is with us because we are with God. But I'd like to, first of all, before I go on with further description of this deep statement, do you have any questions? So I'll add, if you don't have questions, the Talmudic passage I brought you with another verse. It says that there's a verse in the book of Eov, it's really another source, where Eov chapter 38 verse 13, it says, anyone who nullifies the mitzvah of the corner of the garment of the tzitzis, he says, Le'echod b'kanfot ha'aretz v'ino v'shei mimenu. That we should recognize the corner of the garment is a reference to the corners of the world. In fact, we refer to this in the introduction to Shema, when we say the blessing. We say, Havinu l'sholem ma'aba konfus oretz, bring us peace from all the four corners of the world. The four corners of the world are the edges of human population on this globe. Now what do the tzitzis do? The tzitzis, they shake away the wicked people and attract the saintly people. You've got to grasp hold of the four corners of the earth, of earthly life, which is frequently populated by those who become earthbound human beings and who don't recognize the power of holiness, the power of the conscience, and dedication to God. But through wearing the tzitzit in the right manner, the wicked people will ultimately be removed, and the righteous people will be strengthened. Any questions?
I just have a clarification.
Yes.
You said in the beginning that we will have 2,800 servants. Is it 2,400 servants? 2,800 servants.
800.
Okay, because it's 70 times 10, which is 700, and there's four corners.
Times 4.
Times 4. That's okay. 2,800.
Yes.
One question.
Yes.
So in a time when we're so far from the revelation at Sinai, and hopefully so close to redemption, it's said in many places that the nations, the 70 nations, chose not to accept the Torah. It was too much for them for whatever reason. They all had one sort of taiva or lust that they wanted too much to hold on to. Well, we see it's obvious when we look around the world that there are a lot of people that want to cling to Hashem, to get to know God and to do some sort of mitzvahs. And I understand that for those people there's the 7 Noahide laws, the 7 mitzvahs b'nei Noah. And I'm just wondering, with so much competition in the non-Jewish world from all sorts of different religious and scientific groups, what's a good way to go about promoting or recommending Noahide and a good place to find resources to put this forth?
Well, there are today many different groups that spread aspects of the Noahide code. Ask Noah is one internet, not just an internet promotion, also produced many books in a few languages. So there's certainly the concept of the Noahide code is spreading. It was especially spread also in the Lubavitcher Rebbe, even got the American government to to make some sort of presentation, even to have a day dedicated to the Noachide Code. And there are also many other groups that have developed this, both from a scholarly angle, philosophical angle, and a more popular angle. When I was active in England, in the courts, in the Bate Din, and the students came, they said, they'd like to become Jewish. So I said to them, there's no point us making a good Christian into a bad Jew. It's a better idea. Many of them came from a Christian background and felt religion. They saw that Christianity is filled with irrational dogmas they couldn't accept. So I gave them books. There was a person called Eme Palier, who was a Catholic priest, but he studied the Bible. It's going back 150 years. And he thought he wants to find out about Judaism. And he started reading more about Judaism. And he had certain doubts concerning the dogmas of Christianity and Catholicism. He went to visit a shul on Yom Kippur and was very much impressed by the whole atmosphere. So he went at that time, one of the greatest thinkers amongst the rabbis in this area was a rabbi of Trieste called Eliyahu ben Amozek. Eliyahu ben Amozek, he gave out many essays and also a major work on the significance of the Noachide Code. Very deep thinker, wrote many articles, and he taught this person the Noachide Code, on the basis of which Emir Palier wrote even a book called Sancta Inconnue, The Unknown Sanctuary, translated also to English, where he described the sanctity of the Noachide Code for non-Jews. He adopted it. When I had students who were keen to take on themselves the way of Judaism, I nearly always told them, it's better you try the Noachide Code first. If you fulfill it, you're also considered a saint. You're given your portion in eternity like the Jew. It's easier. Also, it should be the first step. Here in Israel, also would be in fact, we try to introduce it. Discussed it frequently in biblical conferences, and Schwartz also worked in this direction. Of Zitzman also gave many lectures and wrote articles. And in a few days going to be the Yortzeit for Mordechai Eliyahu, who's chief rabbi also in Israel. And he also accepted this concept of God trying to make Noachides, but still, it didn't reach the level of the making communities here. In America, there were some churches where the minister of the church became a Noachide, and many of his congregants also. In fact, some of the ministers came to visit us, and they changed from Christian priests or ministers, and they became teachers of the Noachide Code. And it is progressing at the grassroots level, and also Eliyahu even made out a declaration this time for acceptance of the Noachide Code. But now I'm going to bring this in, your question also, the connection with these dominion from all the languages, all the nations of the world. We know 70 is the number of nations defined at the beginning of the Chumash, Parshat Noach. But the fact that it's 70 is the concept that the multiplicity of groups in the world does not mean they should fight with one another. It means they should set up harmony, but that's the concept of 70. To establish harmony. That's why we have 70 members of the clan of Yaakov Avinu, different tribes, but they all have to work together to create harmony. And the 70 nations, different approaches, but they should set up a joint symphony of praise to Hashem. So that's expressed here. So the Chasam Sofer adds a few words to the comment of the Gemara which are very significant. He says, what does it mean, the corner of their garments? Especially connected with what has to be put on every corner. You put threads tied to Hashem, but you also got one of the threads have to be a patil techila. You have to have the sky blue color. Of course, the sky blue color is similar to the oceans with the sunshine, and the ocean is similar to the firmament of the heavens. And the firmament of the heavens is similar in its color to the throne of glory. Now for this there are many different verses in the Tanakh that represent this idea, this principle. And the word Techeles, it's all the Tachlis, same letters. In the ultimate Tachlis Shamayim V'Aretz, that ultimate purpose lies in the sky blue color, which is also a color in the spectrum which today, through screening, through ultraviolet rays, the mental energy and the spiritual activity in the human mind, the color sky blue represents a high level. And also, the idea is really just the color of distance. Now the concept is, in life we should not just look at the world and our lives superficially. Try to understand what lies behind it. Who lies behind the physical world? Who lies behind our physical activities and even our power of thinking? Who lies behind the brain? It's the power of the Spirit. And ultimately the Spirit leads us to know that the whole of this world is the throne for Hashem. As it says, Haaretz Adom Raglai. It says, the earth is really a footstool of the throne of Hashem. Hashem himself is above time, space, above the material world. He is the producer and the creator of time, space, causality, energy and matter. So this is the concept of Ptil Techeles. In fact, it said, Uritem Oto. It said, Uritem Oto, it says on the Ptil Techeles, you should look at the Ptil Techeles. Because I'll say, what also means, that's the way you'll see Hashem. You can't see Hashem himself, but you can raise your mind to look at everything in life from what the power of God, who is deep down in our conscience. His power is there. And deep behind the whole world is the mind of the universe. So you think everything in the universe that's happening is all produced through the power of Hashem. So that creates Kedusha. That's why we find the Beit HaMikdash, the vessels were covered with cloaks of Techelet. The Kohanim also wore garments of Techelet. So he said like this, when it says here that every Jew would have 2,800 servants, is to be compared to how the Jewish people began. They began from the time of idolatry. Hashem's plan was that all mankind should be on the high level, close to Him. But when they did not turn to Him, but they turned against Him, so there was one man, Abraham, who through a search reached closest to Hashem, and was a man of enormous chesed. And he and Sarah, his wife, says, "Hanefesh asu b'choron." Their life was dedicated to bring people who were strangers and wanderers in materialism, to bring them to recognize the truth of Hashem. And that's referred to the Chumash, Hanefesh asu b'choron, the souls that they made in Choron. In other words, the Kedusha of Am Yisrael has to spread to those who don't have it yet. He says, now what does it say about tzitzis, the Pasha? U'zachartem es kol mitzvot Hashem. Through looking at the tzitzit, you will remember all the mitzvot Hashem, vasitem otam, and you perform them, not just think about them. It will give you power through the tzitzit to be able to fulfill them. When Lord Tatur, you won't go astray after your materialistic ideas and the stimuli to your eyes. Shitiu b'tuchim atem. He says, Lord Tatur is not just a prohibition, it's a promise. Hashem says, if you fulfill this teaching of Torah to the rest of the world, to Jew and non-Jew, it will stop you from becoming too much subjected to the stimuli of materialistic desires for power, for pleasure, that will turn you into an animal, perhaps with intelligence. It's where you'll be protected. You won't, person naturally, his senses, external senses, lead him astray. He would like to have the most beautiful woman. He would like to have a magnificent mansion, like to have the best food. And if something stands in his way, if he's blind to other people's needs, because it's just involved constantly in fulfilling his appetite. The appetite is such that the more you have, the more you want. You reach a certain level, but then sometimes you become sickened by it, but then comes cravings. Craving returns on a stronger level. As we have today, so many young people, they suffer from substance abuse. All different substances that bring pleasure, that bring apparent, very exciting experiences on the material level. Then they become addicted to it. They can't even separate themselves anymore. So we have the tzitzit to protect us. In fact, I'll tell you, I'll just add to these remarks of the Chatuv Sofer, that there was a famous psychologist, professor of psychiatry and psychology at Sorbonne University, called Henri Baruch. And he entered the field of moral psychology, wrote many books on it, became a Baal Teshuvah. And I saw one of his articles called The Test of Tzitzit. He made a test with tzitzit and demonstrated how if a person understands the tzitzit, and I think he worked with different groups to experiment, how it was possible then not to become addicted to sexual stimuli, to just throw them out. That's what it says here. If you're busy using your connection with Hashem and fulfillment of the mitzvot in practice, the mitzvot teach you the self-discipline. You're so busy with the mitzvot, and especially if you're not, you say to yourself, I'm not just fulfilling the mitzvot for myself. I've got to have 2,800 students, so I'm going to prepare myself. I'm going to teach them. What, I'll start with 1 student, then I'll start with 10 students, I'll build it to 20. I've got to reach the level of even more. So a person works on it, and he becomes creative, and as a result, he's not subject to any addiction. So he says, you go all the mitzvot, because the mitzvot cover everything. Because the sages say, Kol hamazak et harabim, ein chet ba'agado, u'zchut harabim talui bo. The main thing is to recognize you're here to bring purity to many people. Each person can become a source of purification. It's just like truth is that, in fact, I'll give it the moshel, which I used to answer to a question when I gave a talk to university students at the time when there's a whole wave of students in the drug culture. So I gave a talk on the negative aspects of drug taking. So they asked me a question. They said, "Mr. Kofine, what you're talking about, but tell me, did you ever take drugs?" I said, "No." I said, "Well, what do you mean? So how can you talk about it? You don't know what it's all about. You're just looking at it, looking from your point of view, but if you haven't taken them yourself, you don't know what it means. Yeah? Just you start taking it." So I said, it's like a doctor. Yeah? So a doctor, he has to deal with infectious diseases. So to cure them, he must avoid infection. I'm not going to say, well, the only way I can cure an infectious disease if I become infected myself and I know what it means. Oh no, if I'm infected, I won't be able to heal anybody. I've got to observe it from the outside, know how to remove it, because I see the evil effects. So, you just have to see the evil effects. You have to see young people look like aged, withered bodies with all the pricks of these syringes in his arm, going around with a tin, collecting money. He's a youngster, and he's got no family anymore, and he's got no livelihood anymore. He becomes a zombie. You just have to see that going on with people who are addicted to drugs. What you need to have it yourself? No. You need to find a way to cure it. And the same applies to people addicted to power, to pleasure, to the pursuit of pleasure in a perverted manner even. Then there's no such thing as love left, it's only lust from the lowest level. So if you want really happiness, happiness comes from giving, from helping others. When you see there's so many millions of people suffering, you've got to try to help them if you can. And if you've been given the Torah, you've been given the ability to reach Kedusha, you have to spread it. That's why the sages say anyone who brings purity or merit, spiritual merit or virtue to other people, then he himself will be able to increase his dedication to virtue for himself also. So that's the concept of tzitzit. That's why tzitzit is, in fact, in the Kabbalistic, Hasidic literature, is referred to as or makif, the light that surrounds a person. Just like Hashem says, he wraps himself up in light, or kasalma. He dresses him with light like a garment. And when we said Hashem told us to follow the 13 qualities of loving kindness, as it were, Hashem clothed himself in the talis like a shliach tzibur. And then he said, these are 13 qualities, you follow them, And then, as a result, you'll be wrapped up in a talis. The talis is the talis of light. You'll be able to bring light to the world, the highest level. Human being could be an object of light and warmth to help those who unfortunately are in the dark and in the cold. So that's the power of the tzitzis for each one of us. And let us hope that each one of us will merit. Of course, we've got to start with the Jews, because that's the main problem today. What does it help? You know, like people, even let's say with propaganda, we've got to work very hard on making Jews pro-Israel. We've got to deal all the time with the non-Jewish enemies of the Jewish people, but we've got a fifth columnist. We've got so many Jews, both even in the government of Israel, and even in Israel in higher positions, especially professors of the universities in Israel, who are great opponents of Israel becoming a Jewish state. Israel has to become only democratic and not Jewish. The Jewish values, they stop us becoming liberals, universalists. And they're joined by J Street and the BDS in the university campuses, where some of the Jews are the leaders of the promotion of all the lies and propaganda of our enemies. So we've got to work in that direction as well. The same applies also to Jewish values. We've got to work hard. These Jewish values, spiritual values of Hashem, should be adopted by the Jewish people. And from then, we can go to the others. It's very interesting when I came first to Israel, though there was a very great Jewish leader of the former generation. He worked on a committee to save Jews from all over the world. And I visited him, he said, you know, you should start teaching Torah in Japan, in the University of Japan, because the Japanese, they realize their religion is good, and then there's a movement of non-Jews who want to find out about the Jewish religion. Work on them. If you work on them, on the non-Jews, he said there's a Yiddish saying, "Vis Christen sich, as Yidel sich." That means, if the Christians become interested in Judaism, so it will also create more pride amongst the Jews for their Judaism. If you get the non-Jews all to want Torah, so then the Jews might also listen, many of them. But nevertheless, we have a prior duty, is if they're poor people, also poor in mind, poor in understanding the mitzvah holiness. You've got to start with your family, then with your nation, then spread outwards the rest of mankind. So let us hope we'll all be able, all of you will also be able to make, all of us make our contribution towards changing the whole world. Amenu nowadays.
Amen.
Questions are complete to take at the beginning of tomorrow's shiur, as it was this morning. Awesome.